Okay, it is Friday morning, October what, 10th?
Continue straight for 20 minutes to exit 69, State Route 113 toward Flomaton, Wallace.
I'm on my way to the beach. I got up this morning. I left my house yesterday afternoon after I got off work, and I started driving south toward the beach where I'm going for the next week. Thank the Lord. And I'm making a big video, probably more like 2 videos, because I'm videoing everywhere that I'm going. And I've already been making a few, and when I'm done, I'll just cobble them all together and make probably at least 2 videos, maybe more. But I drove down to near Montgomery, Alabama yesterday afternoon, and I got to the campground, and I was exhausted. But I didn't even unhitch my camper. It was level enough. I didn't hook up the water or anything. You'll see that on another video, I guess. I just hooked up my power cord. I didn't need air. I didn't need heat. Well, I could have used heat last night. It got nippy. And I just conked out at like 8 o'clock last night. And I woke up at 4 this morning, and it was cool. And I checked my weather app, and it was 53 degrees. I couldn't believe it. I could have got up and turned the heat on, but instead I just pulled the covers up under my chin and went back to sleep, and woke up again around 7. I never sleep that much. That means I slept at least 10 or 11 hours, which is bizarre. I get 4 or 5 a night. So slow down there, buddy. So I guess I needed it. Hey, I'm on vacation. I can sleep, right? So anyway, I got up and left and hit the road, and I'm on Interstate 65 in Alabama going south. I'm going to Gulf Islands National Seashore. I've never been there before. It's near Pensacola, Florida. I'm going to be there for a couple of nights, and then I'm going over to Gulf State Park in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Both places on the Gulf of Mexico. Beautiful beaches, beautiful water, clear. They didn't get any effects of Hurricane Milton. That was further down on the peninsula of Florida. But these places I'm going are really hard to get into. But I was lucky enough to snag a site at each place. So that's where I'm headed. And I'm stopping at points of interest along the way. I'm in no hurry, just meandering. But I wanted to make this video, which is not so much about the vacation, but I've had this idea brewing. Buddy, come on over on top of me. I've had this idea brewing for a while, and I want to throw it out to you and see what you think. I got on my father-in-law's overalls, but I don't think I'm going to need them much longer. It's going to be in the 80s. It's climbing up there now. I needed them this morning. It was cool, but I'll be getting in my house behind me here before too long, getting on some shorts. Anyway, I know that a lot of you may have seen this interview that Kamala Harris did with CBS News recently. You know, this woman, getting her to make herself available to the press is almost impossible, it seems. Trump is the opposite. Trump will talk to anybody, apparently. He's not afraid to talk to anybody off the cuff, without notes, without teleprompters. Not so with Kamala Harris. I've seen video of her. I've seen events where she is trying to, mingle with people and talk to people, but if she doesn't have a teleprompter, she doesn't know what to say. And she changes her accent or dialect or what have you, depending on the audience she's with. Hillary Clinton used to do the same thing. If she's with blacks, she'll try and talk like a black person talks, apparently. If she's with Latinos, she'll try and talk like a Latino. She just panders to her audience. It's just absurd and insulting. But she doesn't want to talk to the press unless it's in a controlled environment where she likely knows what's going to be asked of her before it's asked. But she did this sit-down interview with CBS, And what has happened is that the finished product, I think it was on 60 Minutes, in fact it was on 60 Minutes, the finished product that appeared on the air was heavily edited. And there exists somewhere on the old interwebs some unedited cuts with Harris being interviewed. The woman is, folks, I'm sorry, but Kamala Harris is an idiot. She is just not a bright person at all. She just isn't. She's dumb. We all know how she got to where she got to. It wasn't by merit. Ask Montel Williams. Ask downtown Willie Brown. She didn't get to where she is by merit, and she is an absolute lightweight. She's not cerebral. She's not intellectual. She doesn't have a grasp on world issues. She doesn't understand economics. She's just a more adult version of AOC as far as I'm concerned. You know, she's tried to duplicate some of Trump's policy positions because they're winning issues. Now she's for...
Police reported ahead.
She's never been for fracking before. She's starting to parrot Trump on a lot of issues. I think she's in trouble. I think she knows she's in trouble. I think her handlers know she's in trouble. I think the polls are showing a bad outcome for her. And I hope that's true. I hope and pray that's true. Again, my problems with Trump are legion. But when it comes down to these two, it's no contest. But I've got an idea about what to do about this situation with this one-sided leftist media in America. As we all know, all the letter networks, the CBSs, the ABCs, the NBCs, the CNBC, the Disney-owned media outlets, all of these outlets are left-leaning. CNN. We all know this. They hate Republicans. They hate Trump. They carry the water for the Democrats. We all know that. And I think it's time to do something about it. I believe that Donald Trump, when he gets into office, needs to call these media outlets on the carpet for their bias and their inaccuracies. Now, I understand this is a bit of a sticky wicket because you may say, well, wait a minute, we've got the First Amendment, and I don't want anybody messing with the First Amendment. I understand that. And I'm not addressing print media. I'm not addressing the internet. But I want you to think about this for a minute. These broadcast companies, broadcast corporations, some of them funded by the government. NPR is funded by the government. PBS is funded by the government. It is basically government news, government-sponsored news. Who wants that? Does that sound like free speech to you? I think it's time for Donald Trump to do something about this once and for all. And here's my idea. Bear with me, because I'm serious. I think it's time for him to pluck CBS, for example, pluck that apple from the tree, bring them before Congress, or direct or tell the director of the Federal Communications Commission to revoke their license. How about that? Are you recoiling? Wait a minute, that might be a bridge too far. Listen, again, I'm not talking about free speech per se. These broadcast corporations, folks, are regulated by the Federal Communications Commission. They have to have a license to broadcast. They have to apply for a license. They are regulated. They have to have their license renewed. I think it's time to call these butts before Congress and hold them accountable for their bias and their inaccuracy in reporting. Think about it. All these aforementioned networks, the CBS's, ABC's, NPR's, all of these outlets, you remember, they all reported as fact the Russian dossier scandal, the Hillary Clinton purchased Russian dossier. Do you remember that? Do you remember how Comey covered up Hillary for that? But that was reported in the major media, in the mainstream media. That Russian dossier was reported as fact, and it was a complete hoax. And what happens to these media outlets when it's revealed that it's a hoax? Nothing. They get to keep on reporting their version of the news. Their licenses are not revoked. They're not accountable whatsoever. They don't have to answer to anybody. They can just keep reporting the fake news, and nobody does anything about it. I think it's time to do something about it. I think it's time to make an example. You know, you got one child in the class who's cutting up and creating mayhem, and the teacher can't keep order. You pull that troublemaker out of the class and deal with him. You know, when I was in elementary school, I can tell you how we dealt with situations like that. And when one rabble-rouser got sent to the principal's office when I was a kid, I can tell you what happened to him. And I can tell you it straightened him up. And it put the fear of God in the rest of the class. Because he got sent a message: behave, straighten up and fly right. Are you going to go get sent to Mr. Borden's office again? And Mr. Borden, when I was in elementary school, he walked around our halls with a cigar in one hand and a paddle in the other. And neither one of them were props, if you get my drift. And if you got sent to the principal's office, you knew what was going to happen to you. And it would amend your behavior. We didn't have behavioral issues when I was in school. We just didn't, because there was retribution, there was discipline, there was you were going to answer for your bad behavior. You were going to straighten up and fly right? And I'm just saying, it's time for Trump to make an example. Just take one of these companies and put the fear of God in them. Take one company, either revoke their license or tell them your license is in danger of not being renewed unless you straighten up and fly right. Folks, we got to put the fear of God in the media. It's as simple as that. They are running roughshod over the American people with their bills that they're puking out every day. It's nothing but lies. They are all in bed with Kamala Harris. They're all carrying the water for Harris Waltz. They all hate Donald Trump. And it is reflected in their news reporting. You don't get facts. You get one-sided media bias. That's all you get. You don't get objectivity. And I think it's time to do something about it. Again, these corporations are regulated by the government. We can talk about the whether they should be, but the fact is they are. You pull a license of one of them, and it might just make the rest of them straighten up and fly right. I think it's time we did something like that. Put together a congressional committee, a commission of some kind. Start calling the heads of these networks before Congress. Explain to me why your reporter reported this when it is verifiably a lie. It is completely inaccurate, and here's the proof. Yet you are a news organization and you're reporting this as fact. Explain that to us. Start making some hay. Start making some trouble for these people. And they may, have a little come to Jesus meeting with them, as we say in the South. I'm not talking about doing violence to the First Amendment, but folks, these corporations, these 6 corporations that control our news, what is it, 90% of our news? Nobody's watching over them. Nobody's regulating them in reality, in theory maybe, but the government's not doing anything about it. And you got half the country who believes the lies put out every day by the mainstream media. And they think they're being told the truth. They just hear it So they believe it. And half the country's voting for degenerates like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Because they don't know any better, because they're too lazy to find out the truth. I think it's time to do something about it. I think it's time to call the troublemaker. Just call one troublemaker to the principal's office and make life a little hard on him. I'm ready to see some of these people go down. I'm ready to see somebody big go down. I'm ready to see a perp walk of Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton or one of the Obamas or Peter Strzok. You remember him? How about James Comey? Trump shouldn't have fired him. He should have had him arrested. I'm ready for retribution. I'm ready for Trump to raise some hell when he gets back into office. The Democrats accuse him of being a dictator. Well, they're going to say that anyway, so hell, just do it. Just do it. You know, the right in America is just the whipping boy of the left. There is right-leaning media, but by far and away, the dominant media in America is they're all leftist folks. They're all in bed with Harris, Walz, Obama, Clinton. I think it's time to do something about it. Again, these broadcast corporations exist because they applied for a license to broadcast with the FCC. Well, if the FCC can grant them a license to broadcast, how come they can't revoke that license? I think they can. I think they should. I think they should take one network and revoke their license. You think it wouldn't wake up the rest of them and say, hey, maybe we better amend our ways? Anyway, that's just my thoughts. Let me hear your thoughts down below. I'm heading to the beach, and I'll keep you posted.